Good evening, fourth grade. Tonight's lesson is on comparing fractions using fraction bars, fraction circles, and number lines. So please mark this as the title of your next free page in your math notebook. After you've titled it, unpause the video and close your notebook and just concentrate through the I do part. All right, so we spent the last week on using some equivalent fraction strategies. We used fraction bars, fraction circles, number lines, partitioned drawings, and set models, all to tell whether or not fractions were equivalent. And those strategies are going to help us also compare fractions. The word compare in math, if you have forgotten it, means to tell whether one thing is greater than, less than, or equal to another. And so we're going to do that today instead. A lot of fractions are not equivalent, and if they're not equivalent, then they're either greater than or less than each other. I'm going to do that today. So today we're going to focus on comparing them using this strategy, and this strategy. We'll use this one another day. This one we probably will not use. This is a great strategy for finding equivalent fractions. Can be a little bit weird if you try to compare fractions with it. So let's see. I'm going to do each of these two ways just to kind of get you in the habit of checking with multiple strategies here. So let's compare these two fractions, 1/5 and 7/8. Let's decide which one is greater or less than the other. All right. So why don't I start with fraction bars? I've got that opened up. So to check, remember when I use my fraction bars or circles, I like to use 1. And I want to know if 1/5 is greater than or less than 7/8. So here we go. 1. Oops. It wants to go right there. Well, maybe I'll let it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7/8 there, and I can see easily from this model 7/8 is much longer. The 7/8 bar is much longer than the 1/5 bar, which means it has a greater value. It's almost 1, and this 1/5 is almost 0. So I would say from that 1/5 is less than 7/8. I think I'll do a second strategy just to check it out. Number lines can be a good way to tell. 0, remember fractions are between 0 and 1, so I usually put a number line that just goes from 0 to 1. And 1/5 would be at fifths, 1/5, 2/5, 3/5, 4/5, and 5/5 is 1. So there is 1/5. Put a mark there. And then for my eighths, got to line my zeros up, line my ones up, and then now I'm going to partition this one into eighths rather than into fifths. So that's halves, fourths, and eighths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 7/8 would be right here. And you can tell from your number line, on a number line, numbers that are greater are to the right, and numbers that are less are to the left. And so you can tell 1/5 is quite a ways to the left of 7/8. So I checked that with the second strategy. All right. Let me do one more. 2/4 and 4/8. Why don't I do circles this time? What were they again? 2/4 and 4/8. So let's switch to circles. 2/4. Remember with the circles, you've got to choose pieces that will match up. They don't work quite as smoothly. And 4/8. Looks like this. And they look to me to be pretty much the same. You know, if I look at a whole compared to that, and a whole compared to that, they look to be about the same. So my guess from my first strategy is that those are equal. Let's check with a second to be safe. I think I'll do number lines again. So we draw 1 for 2/4, 0, 1. That's half, and that's fourths. 1, 2, 3, 4/4. So 2/4 is here. Gotta put a dot where it goes. And then eighths. Line up my zeros. Line up my ones. And that's halves, fourths, eighths. And 4/8 would be 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8 right there. And also from this strategy, sure looks an awful lot to me like these two are in equal spots on the number line. They're not, nothing's to the right and nothing's to the left. They look like they line up perfectly. So I think those are equal. All right, open your math notebook, please, and let's do 2 together. So if you need to open your app or go to Fraction Bars ABC on your computer, please do so, because we're going to use 2 strategies here to make sure we're extra careful. So 4/6 and 3/9. Let's compare those using greater than, less than, or equal to. I think I will use bars for that. Switch to tiles for me. Check my fractions again. 4/6 and 3/9. So here's my whole. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. That's 4/6. And 3/9 was my other. Oh, I don't have 9ths on here, do I? Well, then let's just change that one. Why don't we do 3/8 instead of 3/9? Since I don't have 9ths fraction. But if you do, if you use the plastic ones and you have 9ths, that's fine. We'll do 3/8. So 1/8, 2/8, 3/8. 4/6 is quite a bit longer than 3/8, which means 4/6 is the greater fraction. So I'm going to say 4/6 is greater than 3/8. Let's double check with some number lines here. Good practice using more than one strategy. So 6ths, 3/6 is a half, and then I'm going to need to divide each half into 2 more partitions. 1/6, 2/6, 3/6, 4/6, 5/6, 6/6. Always a good idea to check after you've drawn it and make sure you have the right number of things. And 4/6 is right there. And go back to blue. 3/8. So let's see. Eighths, I like. Eighths are the one. Halves, fourths, and eighths, you can just keep dividing things in half. So I can do half. Then if I divide the halves in halves, I have fourths. And if I divide the fourths in half, I have eighths. So three-eighths, this is 1/8, 2/8, 3/8 right here. And I can see, remember I said on a number line, numbers are greater in this direction and less in this direction. And I can tell 3/8 is definitely less than 4/6. So we did that right. All right. One more, 1/2 and 2/3. Why don't we start with circles this time? Here is a half. Here is 2/3. And it looks like 2/3 takes up more of my circle than a half. A half stops about here, and 2/3 goes farther. So looking at my fraction circles, I would say that 1/2 looks like it's less than 2/3. I will double check with some number lines, however. One half is there. And 2/3. Remember, when you do number lines, you got to line up your zeros and ones. You want to be as precise as possible, because if they're really close, you want to make sure your drawings are accurate enough that you can tell where you should be. So thirds, I've got to divide it into 3 even parts. 1, 2, 3 look pretty even. And 2/3 is this one. And I can tell 2/3 is to the right of 1/2. So, and that's the greater direction, so 2/3 is greater. We checked it out well. There you go. That's 3 strategies for comparing fractions, telling which one's greater, less than, or whether or not they're equal. Once you have these written down with 2 strategies and you feel like you have a good handle on it, you are all set. See you tomorrow.